Hello and welcome to Murphy's Garden, and this video is all about making revisions to borders. So these are big perennial borders that you see behind me, and we're now coming into autumn. It's the beginning of October, and for me this is a really good time to make the changes that I want to make. You can also do it in the spring, but what I find in the spring, when everything's died back and everything just looks like kind of brown twigs, it's quite difficult to know what anything is. And I did make a mistake last spring where I wanted to remove some phlox, and I accidentally removed a much loved monarda, which I was really annoyed about, and split the phlox that I wanted to remove and ended up with more of it. So I don't want to make that mistake again. I want to do it properly, and I want to do it while it's really fresh in my mind of what the changes are that I want to do. So I've made a little bit of a start last weekend by removing the phlox. That was hard work, but I managed to dig it all out. It was quite an extensive clump, and it's a nice phlox, and I still have it in another part of the garden, and I'll keep it there. But what I want in this border is to have quite sort of bright colours. It's a hot, very hot border in that it gets the sun all day. So I want the colours to kind of reflect that, be quite vibrant. It does have these lovely kind of pastel pink colours in the spring, but as the season draws on, I want those colours to get kind of stronger and more vibrant. And I've learned quite a lot visiting all the gardens that we've been to, particularly Bridgewater. Lots of ideas there that I want to use, particularly the use of veronicastrums, heleniums, all those stalwarts that have got a long season of interest. And it's interesting to see the veronicastrum, although it's obviously not flowering anymore, but the leaves have taken on a lovely colour, and I think that would look quite nice. So there's some things in here that I love. I love this eupatorium with the lovely purple stems is definitely one for keeping. We've got lots of Verbena bonariensis, which is lovely, but what happens is it self-seeds all over the borders, and it's a bit patchy. I want to try and clump it together more and make it more sort of impactful. We've got salvia amistad is a great one. I want to keep that. Echinacea, I've got Echinacea purpurea, and it's always been quite disappointing because although I love the flowers, I like the form. What I find with the Echinacea purpurea is that at this time of year, it's just, well, quite early on in the season, it just kind of collapses, and it really hasn't looked very good at all this year and last year. So having done a little bit of research, there are other better echinaceas, as Echinacea purpurea magnus, which is a better version of the purpurea with stronger stems. So I think although it's brutal, I think I'm probably going to remove all the stuff that I've got and replace it with a better variety. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's also quite exciting. So I'm going to make a start. I want to do all the hard work of removing the things I don't want, and then I'll start to play about with plants that I do want. So let's get to work. Okay, so I think I'm getting into my stride now. I'm actually quite enjoying it. It was initially rather daunting knowing where to even begin, but kind of got a bit of momentum going now, and I'm enjoying it. So I'll tell you what I've done. I've done just a portion of the borders. My plan is I have to have a tactic how I'm going to do it, because I've got two borders to do, and I want them to be similarly planted. So I thought I'll do this bit, and then I'll go over there and do the first bit over there, and kind of copy what I'm doing on this side. So I've put the plants in, and at this time of year, when you put the plants in, normally in the winter, I leave all the seed heads to look nice over the winter period. But because I'm moving plants, it's important to cut them back so that the roots can then establish in the ground. If there's a lot of foliage, then they will just flop. Particularly, I think it's going to be quite warm this weekend actually. So a lot of the plants are starting to flop already, but I've deliberately left the foliage and the flower so that you can see and I can see how things look how things look together. So I will, once I've decided that's right, then I will be cutting the things back, and then obviously I need to water everything very well. And my plan is I'd like to mulch the whole area. I might try and get some manure, mulch it all, and then I've never done this in these borders, but I want to try and get lots of bark chippings and just mulch the whole area to try and suppress the weeds. So I'll just go through plant by plant what I've done. So at the back I've got the eupatorium that I've split up the top, and I want to have repeat planting up the top, so one clump here and certainly at least one more clump up the top. So I've put that in there. That's looking a bit sad and floppy because that was one of the first things to go in. It's got these lovely purple stems which look nice in contrast to other plants that we've got. So I've got the little clary sage that I grew from seed. I just put a little clump of that there. I don't know if that will stay. Here I've got the heleniums. This is Helenium Moorhen Beauty, and again, as I say, I've left them because you can see then the height. Both of these are a good height. This is the eupatorium, and both are about the same height, so that looks quite good together. And then here I've got the this is a Veronicastrum. It's this lovely yellow leaf, and I thought that would look nice as that establishes the lovely contrast of the yellow leaf and the stems of the purple stems. And then to add a little bit of airiness, I didn't want anything, when I had the phlox here, it was very heavy next to the steepen. It didn't, from that point of view, it didn't work. So I've just put a big clump of Verbena bonariensis here, and hopefully that will give the sort of airiness and look quite nice. Here I've put the monarda, so there was some monarda that I hadn't dug up, and I've kept that, and I've just put it in here. I've just put, there's 3 bits of it here, so I've just done that there. This is the rose, which I haven't touched. Then in front of me here I've got the geranium. This is Geranium Roseanne, a lovely, lovely geranium, just love it. That was actually in the lower part of the garden, so I've moved a clump of that here. Okay, and I've just turned the camera over a little bit to get this bit. So at the front I've got the sedum, or Hylotelephium as it's now called, and it's pretty much in the same place that it was, but I did dig it up, and the reason I did that is because there was a lot of the phlox that was sort of growing through it, and a lot of weeds and things, so I really want to try and get these borders as weed free as possible, so I dug it up for that reason, and I've planted it in a sort of, you know, perhaps quite a big sprawl. I have got a lot more over there, so I'd like to repeat plant this sedum because it does look nice here and does very well in dry soil, which this is. This is Rebeccae, Black-Eyed Susan. So we've put that behind it. I thought that looked a nice contrast, the yellow and the pink. Then behind here, this is a dahlia. Now, as you can see, it's not obviously not attached. I've just literally put it here so that you can see the colour. It's a beautiful dahlia. I can't remember what it's called. It's got it says Sarah Raven dahlia, and it's got yellow and orange flowers. And so I've dug up the tuber and I've put that in, really, really lovely big tubers. And then just a little area here, I've got some delphiniums. I had a delphinium, I think it's called Black Knight, so it's a very deep dark purple, so I thought that would look nice in contrast. I love purple and orange together, it looks really lovely, so I've put that there. The delphinium flowers obviously early in the season, but then we often do get another flush, and it was flowering actually. We often do get another flush at this time of year, so that's gone in there. I've just left that just to remind me what I've done, and that's as far as I've got. So I've just got up to this point. These beautiful dahlias, I think they'll probably stay. I think they look quite good there, but I will just work through the rest of the border. But for now, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to do the same on that side. And I also am just writing it all down. I've got a little pad and I'm just making a note just as we go, just making a note of what I'm planting. But then I've also obviously got it on YouTube, so I will be able to watch this video back hopefully and remember what I've done and what my thinking was. So it's coming to the end of the day. It's actually getting quite chilly. I need to get my jumper. Murph's gone in. He's getting a bit cold and a bit old, so he's gone in for his dinner, and I'm just going to tidy up a little bit. I haven't finished, there's more still to do, but I will carry on another day. But what I'm doing is, as I go, I've got some really nice compost. We're getting some lovely compost now. We bought a chipper, and what that's meant is that all the hedging, like we've been doing lots of hedge cutting recently, and because we're chipping it, it goes into really lovely fine compost really, really quickly. So that's definitely been worth while buying that. I mean, obviously if you've got a smaller garden, you don't need to go to that extreme, but for a garden of this size, it's just so important because soil health is everything, and also the problem of what to do with all the stuff that we generate, all the hedge cuttings and things like that is a big problem for us. So we've turned that problem into something really good, a solution to our other problem, which is the sandy soil that we've got, which is always very nutrient depleted. We can then put that back into the soil, and it's that cycle of life and regenerating and keeping the garden moving forward. So that's been really successful. So I'm just mulching and doing all that as I go. So I'm just continuing up the border. It's taken me quite a while to do this. I've done it over the course of a few weekends, but just weeding, moving things around. Here I've got a big clump of diorama, so I'm just trying to kind of clump it all together. It's kind of spread out. It's not as impactful as it could be if it's all together. So I'm just moving that and just weeding as well. And then once I'm happy with everything, I'm mulching the borders really well. It's always best to do a really thick coat of mulch, so a couple of inches, 3 inches if possible. So I'll be back and forward to the compost heap. I had thought about using farmyard manure, getting manure in, but sometimes manure can be a bit cloddy and quite thick and actually smother the plants. I think this is really good stuff, and we've got plenty of it, which I will show you in a minute. But so I will be taking a few trips back and forward, but certainly we've got plenty of it, so we can afford to be very generous. So I will just share with you our composting system. So this is all the, in fact, this is the Prunus lusitanica that we cut in the last video. So the leaves are on there, but this is all the other hedging that Al's been doing. So it's all been shredded finely. Oh, and the heat that's coming off that, it's really, really hot in the middle, really hot. In fact, there's steam coming out of it, you can see. So it takes such a short space of time for that to rot down. And then the stuff that we're getting, what we'll do is we'll turn that. We're going to borrow the digger in the next week or so, and that will be turned into the next heap. And then it just generates such a lot of heat when it's turned, and it very, very quickly breaks down. And it breaks down into this. Okay, and I'll just show you what's in the second bay. So this is stuff that really isn't very old at all, but already, do it with a fork. It's just lovely, it's perfect. And I can put that straight on the bed. And with planting more trees, what that will mean is that we'll get a lot more leaf mould, because we never have enough leaf mould. So we can put that in here into the mix as well, and that will also improve the structure of our very sandy soil. But this makes a very, very nice mulch. 2 days later, and we've borrowed our farmer friend Brian's digger, and Alistair's just using it to turn the compost heap. So this is bay 1, so he's already cleared bay 2, so he just scrapes it all back, lifts it all up, puts lots and lots of air into it, and then just turns it into bay 2. So we'll just have a look at some of the compost that we're getting out the other end. We've got 4 bays. To be honest, we very rarely get to number 4, but we should do. The more you turn the compost, the faster it breaks down. So if you can do it every couple of months, then that would be the ideal. But in reality, we don't do it as often as that. So Al's cleared this bay, so that's great. So when we've got any cutting back to do, we've got a nice clear bay. And then this is the bay that he's pushed all the stuff into. As you can see, it's quite full. I'll just stand back because it'll be interesting to see in a week or so that will go right down. So that's full of all the hedge cuttings and things that we've been doing in the last few weeks. And what I try and do, I have done videos on composting before, so if you want more details on what to put in the compost heap, as a general rule, I put half carbon and half nitrogen into the compost. So carbon is anything woody, so this is why putting in all the chipped up hedge cuttings is really good, because it adds carbon. Also we put in ash from the wood burner as well, that goes into. Don't put in coal ash, that's not good, but certainly wood ash is very good. And then we put in all the green stuff that goes in, adds the nitrogen. So as a general just a rough guide, it's sort of 50-50 of each really. And I just want to clarify, because I have mentioned about chipping and shredding, the difference between the two. I kind of use it interchangeably, but a chipper tends to cut wood. So imagine that as your bit of wood. A chipper will cut the wood like that. The blade just goes up and down like that, so it cuts it into little segments of wood, whereas a shredder has blades running at an angle, so it will cut across the grain of wood. And what that means is, it depends what you want. If you're, like, say, a tree surgeon, they would use a chipper and they will produce lots of wood chips, which are great for putting on like a pathway because it doesn't break down that quickly. But if you've got a lot of green waste, as we have, then it's a shredder that we've got, and that means that when it is shredded, you can see like all these hedge cuttings and things, it cuts it up really fine, and that way it breaks down really quickly. So Alistair's shredder can't cope with big bits of wood, like especially big gnarly branches and things like that. It certainly can't cope with that, but it can cope with like little bits of wood. It loves things like that, and certainly like all our hedging and things like that it loves. And if you try and put green waste like leaves and that kind of thing into a chipper, it will quickly block up. It really doesn't like this kind of thing. These laurel leaves could be quite a problem because they take forever to break down, but there's a few on there, but most of them have gone through the shredder, so they're broken up into little pieces and they'll break down quite quickly. So this is the compost then that's left. That's come out the other end, so it's lovely rich black compost, lots of worms in it, really good at improving our soil structure and fertility. So just wanted to quickly do my little spiel about how great composting is, because I know it's a bit boring and stuff, but actually once you get into it you become a bit of a compost bore, and really it's actually one of the most enjoyable parts of gardening. I absolutely love it. So that's all I just wanted to say. And so you can see the difference just by turning it from when we looked at it before. It was much sort of chunkier. This is much lighter and finer. Beautiful, crumbly, lovely black compost. So that's good to use on the borders. And then we will be using it when we come to plant the trees. It's definitely ready. It's lovely. And we won't know whether it's been successful, all this editing and moving about, really until next year. So we might not be completely 100% right, but we're giving it a go and hopefully learning and trying to improve things as we go. But it is more about simplicity, trying to get these borders not so complicated, not so much going on in them, trying to just refine and you know, make those changes. So we'll see what it's like next year. So going forward over the winter, I know some gardening channels are starting to sort of wind down and prepare the garden for winter, but here we're not doing that. In fact, if anything, we're cranking up the heat because we've got lots and lots of things that we want to try and get done this winter. And this for us is a time to get things done because it's a big garden and there's a lot to do with, you know, weeding, grass cutting, hedge cutting, all those other things. We find there's really not much time in the growing season to get anything like that done. But for us, we go a little bit quieter with all of that, so we can push on with lots and lots of jobs. So we've got the tree planting in the area over here. So we've got loads and loads of things to do. So if you want to join us for the ride, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. I'm going to go in now because it's getting a bit cold. So thank you very much for watching, and join us again in the next video. Bye for now.